Good morning, third year students, morning classes. Um, for today's lecture, we are to continue with the second scene of, which is the longest scene, as we said before, the second scene of Act 2 of William Shakespeare's Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark. So you remember in the previous lecture that um, we stopped with the meeting between the king and queen Gertrude while they were discussing with Polonius the reason, the possible causes behind the madness of Hamlet, and why is he behaving so weirdly and oddly so recently in the last recent times. Okay, so also we left the scene with Polonius, who was trying to convince them that, I mean, the king and the queen, that the reason and the cause behind the madness and the queer odd, let's say, behavior of Hamlet is the rejected love from the part of his daughter Ophelia. And also we left the scene with the king Claudius as a really suspicious person concerning the things that are said by Polonius, yet still he agreed to play the game of Polonius, to spy, to eavesdrop on Hamlet while he is talking to his beloved, to his ex-beloved, in fact, now we will see, to his ex-beloved Ophelia. And then on the other hand, he decided also, I mean, the king Claudius, he decided to send for Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, the childhood friends of Hamlet, to also spy on him and then to report to him what Hamlet will say to them and will tell them, and then everything will be said by Hamlet will be reported by those two let's say, never faithful and true friends to the king Claudius, so that he can now form a proposition of the cause of the real cause of Hamlet's, let's say, queer behavior. Then, for today, we are to deal again with after the leaving of Claudius and the king Gertrude. Now we will have Polonius, who will start to play his, let's say, plot and the plan against Hamlet to discover out, not to discover out, even to convince the king and the queen and everybody that he is a man of importance, because what he told them concerning the cause of Hamlet's madness, according to him, he is the only person who is right. So he wants to meet up with Hamlet to convince all the other persons in the play that he is the only person who is right in finding out and figuring out the real cause of Hamlet's madness. So now dealing with the feigning madness of Hamlet in this scene, we will have a meeting first between Polonius for the second part of this scene, a very long scene. We will have a second now part in which we will have two meetings. The first meeting will be between Polonius, as you see here, and Hamlet. And then, of course, this, let's say, long discussion between them. This conversation between them will be full of, let's say, rhetorical questions, rhetorical speeches, and also will be full of puns and playing with the words from both sides, but of course with the cleverness of Hamlet to surpass, in fact, as a pioneer one to the, of course, to the playing with the words, the foolish punning of let's say, Polonius. So we have in the first meeting the distinction between the cleverness and the witty puns that are used by Hamlet, and the foolishness of Polonius, and also the never witty and never clever puns that are used and said by, let's say, uttered by Polonius. So then, after the leaving of the scene from the part of Claudius and Gertrude in the previous part, now Hamlet enters reading a book. Now he is now in the scene, and he is now carrying a book, and he pretends to read that book. Okay, so then Polonius takes the opportunity to speak to him. The result of this, let's say, conversation between them is an interaction that moves from satire to suspicion. Okay, so we have seen always that when the two are in the same place, as you will see here, that now Hamlet is always satirical and cynical of, let's say, the behaviors and the words and the punnings and the speech and even all the elements of language that are used by Polonius. Now, this satire will start at the beginning of their meeting, but then later on in the meeting, in this scene, it will move to suspicion. Now, Hamlet is satirical, but now he will figure out the real intention of Polonius. So his satire, his cynical treatment of Polonius, his laughing at him, okay, then will be turned into suspicion of why is Polonius is here now. So now with Hamlet carefully keeping Polonius off balance, then Hamlet's intention is to frustrate Polonius and make him question Hamlet's madness while at the same time verifying that I mean Polonius, he is indeed mad. So Hamlet is so clever and witty. Never to forget that he is a student at Wittenberg, once more the most important and focal and pivotal university at that time. Okay, so he will use his cleverness and wittiness to play at Polonius. So Polonius came to find out the real cause of Hamlet's madness and to prove to the others that what he told them of the real reason behind this is right, which is only the rejected love from the part of Ophelia, his daughter. Hamlet then will be satirical of him. He will laugh at Polonius so many times in this scene, in this meeting, and then also he will never hide his suspicions of him, and also he will now play cleverly with the words to prove that the one who is mad, in fact, is Polonius and not Hamlet. So Polonius now plays easily into Hamlet's hands. He's so an easy prey. He is now just like a kid in the hands of Hamlet's cleverness. Okay, he is nothing in front of Hamlet. The old man Polonius doesn't even understand when Hamlet insults him by calling him a fishmonger. Now Hamlet, as you see here in the red color, I highlighted this word to you. You notice that he called him a fishmonger. And Polonius is always pretending to be eloquent, to be knowing what is rhetoric, okay, and who is always using long speeches and let us say always playing and punning with the words. Now he doesn't even understand that Hamlet is so much insulting him by calling him a fishmonger. Okay, so because the fishmonger now Hamlet is playing with this word, okay, it has a double meaning, okay. So according to Polonius, as if being referred to as a man who sells fish, so this isn't insulting enough for a man in Polonius's position, so he finds no insult because this is someone, a fishmonger. The first meaning of the pun, the first leg of the pun is that someone, a man who is selling fish. So according to Polonius, he is a servant in the palace, so there is no harm and there is no insult in being a man who is selling fish. So in Shakespeare's time, now you know, whereas the second leg of the pun, the second meaning of this word, fishmonger, drives us back to the time of Shakespeare, to the Elizabethan time. So in Shakespeare's time, the term, I mean, fishmonger, also meant a pimp who was a very bad person. Okay, a fishermonger's daughter now was a harlot, a very, let's say, a bad girl, a bad woman. Okay, so Hamlet's speech is filled with bitter irony and vicious puns, which Polonius fails to detect. He is always pretending to be clever, to be rhetorical. He is always pretending to be eloquent, but he doesn't know because he was a man who was living in the time of Shakespeare and in the Elizabethan time, okay, era. So in spite of this, he doesn't know that fishmonger has a double meaning, and the hidden meaning is really a very insulting meaning and very bitter and satirical, cynical meaning. Okay, so Hamlet makes several references to physical decay and death in his speech with Polonius, of course, with meanings inside of Hamlet's mind, okay, and with messages to deliver, hidden messages, in fact, implicit messages to deliver to Polonius. Okay, so a commonly held early modern belief, again, a belief to the Elizabethan people during that time, asserted that the heat of the sun caused the maggots to spontaneously appear in carrion, in those maggots, those, let's say, spots, because of the sun, because they are now exposed to the sun. I mean the dead bodies. So if a dead body is exposed to the sun for a long period of time, now there will appear maggots, those spots on the dead body of that man or woman or even animal. Okay, so Hamlet moves from the subject of rotting flesh. Of course, this is the surface meaning. This is the explicit meaning, okay, of the maggots on a dead body because it is exposed for a long period of time to the sun for a long span of time. While the hidden, the implicit meaning, the real meaning inside of Hamlet's mind to be delivered to Polonius is, of course, what when Hamlet moves from the subject of rotting flesh to Polonius's daughter, advising Polonius to, as you see here, to let her not walk in the sun. So, of course, he plays with these two sentences, with these two meanings, because now a dead body, if it is exposed for a long period span of time to the sun, maggots will appear on it. Okay, so now Hamlet moves from this general statement to an advice at the hidden meaning, the implicit meaning, to an advice to, of course, an advice that is full with irony. It's filled with bitter irony and cynicalism and cynicism and satirism. Okay, it is, let us say, an advice that is full of and filled with, insults. Okay, to Polonius. Now he is advising him not to let her. I mean his daughter, because if you see here, he has asked him, "Have you a daughter?" So Polonius answered, "I have, my lord." Of course, so as if Hamlet doesn't know, so to pretend as a mad person, to feign madness. Okay, so when he receives yes as an answer that Polonius has a daughter, Hamlet advises him in regard to this same statement of the maggots on the dead body because it is exposed to the sun. He advised him, let her not walk in this sun. Okay, so now Ophelia is just like a dead body to Hamlet, and now by saying and stating this to Polonius, he is really insulting him. So Hamlet may be referring to, in this statement, to Psalm 121 from the Bible in this passage. Okay, the Bible or the scripture reads, "So that the sun shall not burn thee by day, nor by the moon by night." Okay, so this passage, in fact, here the passage of the bread maggots that are exposed to the sun, and this advice that Polonius is not to let her daughter to walk for a long period of time into the sun because she will be rotten. Okay, because of the lust. Okay, because of this, let's say, Elizabethan belief during that time. So as we said, now this passage implies that the sun is to blame for causing maidens, young girls, to experience lust. By extension, now, Hamlet seems to be calling Ophelia a whore, a very bad girl. Hamlet's digression now is so confusing to Polonius that Polonius fails to understand this message. Polonius fails to understand this advice. Polonius failed to understand this movement of Hamlet from the breed maggots on the dead body to let her not walk in the sun, talking about his daughter Ophelia. So Hamlet's to be calling Ophelia now, as we said, a bad girl. So Polonius failed to understand this message, and instead of angering him, instead of being angry, I mean Polonius, the dialogue between him and Hamlet convinces him more than ever that he was right to suspect that Ophelia was the cause of Hamlet's madness, because everything Hamlet tells Polonius, Hamlet now is linking all his speech to Ophelia, and he's always advising Polonius to do things that are related to Ophelia. So this is not considered as an insult to Polonius, while in fact Hamlet is so much insulting him. Okay, so to Polonius, the foolish, let's say, character and person here in this play, he doesn't understand that this is an insult, this is satirical against him, and this is a very bitter irony against him. So he understands now that this is a mere evidence and proof that what he said before to the king and the queen is right, which is Hamlet is mad because of the rejected love from the part of Ophelia. That is why he's keeping on mentioning this name, Ophelia, Ophelia, and Ophelia, so many times. So Hamlet then mocks Polonius to his face. Now, when Hamlet, in fact, this is really the cure to such persons. Now, when Hamlet finds out that Polonius, this supposedly clever, witty person who knows everything, when Hamlet discovers that he doesn't understand that he is insulting him, now Hamlet will move to be direct. Okay, Hamlet will move from the hidden, the implicit insults to a very direct, explicit, let's say, insults in the face of Polonius himself. Okay, so now he start mocks him, he will start making fun of him, he will start insulting him to his face, saying that old men, because Polonius is an old man, so Hamlet tells him directly in his face that old men have a plenty lack of wit. They have plenty lack of it. So he's telling him directly that you lack wit. You are, Elizabethans believe that The old men, they have plenty lack of it. They lack wit, they lack cleverness. And Polonius, you are an old man. This is Hamlet talking to him. Hamlet is telling him that, Polonius, you are what? You are an old man, so you are just like one of these old men who are lacking wit. You are not clever. So this is really a direct now insult in his face. So looking right at Polonius, he looks now, he leaves Polonius, and then he comes to read in the book. Then so many times he makes this jump and these leaps, in fact, from the reading of the book to the inside, to the let's say to the face of Polonius himself. Okay, he looks directly in his face, and Hamlet insults him again and again and again. He tells Polonius that old men are ugly and weak, not only lacking wit, but they are ugly, they are weak also, and then also that if they could, they would be young again. Polonius feels uneasy with Hamlet's message. Now he'll start to be feeling that unease inside of him. He'll start to feel this a little bit of insult. And now this great insult is only felt as a little bit of insult from the part of Polonius, the foolish, really foolish person and character. So he is now, I mean, Polonius is convinced that Hamlet is mad. And this is really what Hamlet wants. He's feigning madness. And now he has, let us say, he gains so many gains from this. He gains many benefits from his speech and conversation with Polonius. He insults him. He tells him hidden messages about his daughter, and he convinces him that no, he plays at him, he makes fun of him, and also he convinces him that he is mad because of Ophelia's rejected love, so that the message will be delivered definitely from Polonius to the king and queen. So now he is convinced that Hamlet is mad, but at the same time, because he cannot figure out, he cannot understand Hamlet's riddles, Hamlet's speeches, Hamlet conversations, Polonius detects some kind of strange wisdom in Hamlet's words. Now he is mad, but he thinks that the wise sayings from the part of Hamlet are the sayings that are said to be wise from the mouth of a mad person. So then we leave now the first meeting in the scene between Polonius and Hamlet, and we move to the another meeting, a second meeting now between Hamlet and his childhood friends Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Now the first leg, this first part of the war is won for the part of Hamlet. Now Hamlet is victorious against Polonius in the war of the speeches, in the war of convincing him and everybody that he is mad, and he is the victorious one. I mean Hamlet, and he is the winning one in this battle of words and puns and rhetorics against Polonius. Now let's move to the second meeting between now Hamlet and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. So those two persons, I mean, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern enter as Polonius departs. Just like when Polonius left the scene, now we will have those two persons. Hamlet greets them, look at the beginning. Hamlet greets them as he had greeted Horatio earlier, happily and exuberantly. Now, so he thinks that they are his own friends, they are childhood friends. So he thinks that they are true friends, just like Horatio. So he treated them, he greeted them, in fact, when they have came, he treated them at their first movement here into the scene. When he had seen them, he greeted them in the same way he keeps on greeting Horatio by telling them happily and exuberantly, my excellent good friends, as you see here. My excellent good friend. So he thinks he is never suspicious of them, and he has no suspicions at all, and he thinks that they are just true friends. So he treated them and he greeted them happily, and he greeted them by saying my excellent good friends, the same way he treated and the same way he greeted Horatio, his only one trusted friend. Okay. So, but the conversation that follows now is superficial compared with the conversation between Hamlet and Horatio. So there is a great difference, in fact, a great discrepancy between the conversations that are held between Hamlet and Horatio and this conversation between Hamlet and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. That was really witty, clever, one that is full of trust and friendliness and love, while this one is full of suspicions, full of mistrust, and full of lies. Okay, So this is a truly superficial uh, conversation if we compare it to the conversations between Hamlet and Horatio. Now Hamlet engages the two men politely, but his initial enthusiasm at seeing his old friends dissipates steadily until it decreases and decreases a moment by a moment, a degree by a degree. It comes lower and lower. I mean, the lust for by Hamlet's trust to the two. By the end of the encounter, by the end of their meeting, he is darkly depressed and disappointed because he discovered that they are sent for by the king Claudius, and he discovered that they are playing a game of eavesdropping and spying on him, and they are playing a game of mistrust against him. That is why now he mistrusts those two persons. Okay, so that is why he will end the meeting between him and them with depression and with disappointment of the friendship that he holds to them. The hypocrisy of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern is so transparent, so clear, it's crystal clear, that Hamlet begins to question their motives for coming to see him. Hamlet, I mean, knows they are not genuinely concerned about him. So their visit is not to take care of him and his health, and not to refresh his mind, and not, of course, to let him to depart and go out and leave out this mood of depression and sadness. He knows directly that they are not concerned about him, and he deduces, he finds out, he proposes that they were sent for. He suggests that they are sent for. They self-consciously evade, they escape Hamlet's questions as to why they have come. Hamlet now turns the tables on the two men, just like he had turned the table on Polonius before in the meeting that we left now before some moments. Now also he uses his cleverness and wit to turn the table on the two men, although Claudius sent them to sound out Hamlet. So before Polonius came to persuade everybody that Hamlet is mad, and now Hamlet uses his cleverness to insult Polonius and to let him believe that he is the one who is mad. Okay, I mean Polonius. And now here's the same strategies, that is the same strategy that is followed by Hamlet. Now those two persons, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, were sent for by the king Claudius to sound out Hamlet. While now Hamlet will use his cleverness and wittiness to make them, and he will, let's say, play on them, and he will sound them out instead in a brilliant turnabout. Hamlet asks them directly, what is the question? He asks them, were you not sent for? Now he is really suspicious of them, and he is asking them directly this question. Were you not sent for? Okay, is there anybody who sent you for here? Okay, to spy on something, to eavesdrop on something, to find out something, to sound out something, me or somebody else. Okay, so when they avoid the question, when they escape the question, Hamlet states his question as a fact now. Okay, when they refused to answer the question, and when they escaped the answer of the question, and now he states this as a fact, and he told them directly, you were sent for. Now this is not a question, just like here, were you not sent for before? That was a question, so he's questioning them. So if they will answer the question, so they are really, let's say, uh, still having a sense of trust among them. But when they evaded, when they escaped, when they refused to answer and refused to answer this question, now Hamlet states this question as a fact, and he holds this statement as a fact, and he told them directly in their faces again, you were sent for, and there is a kind of confession in your looks. It appears in your eyes, in your looks, in your keeping silent on, and in your not answering my question before, which your modesties have not craft enough to color. You are not clever, you are not having craft enough, you are not that clever enough and witty enough to color, to hide that you were sent for. I know the good king and the queen, he means Claudius, and the queen, his mother Gertrude, have sent for you. So he figures out the real cause and reason behind the coming of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Okay, so then Guildenstern now gives up. and admits the truth. Now, really look at the cleverness of Hamlet, what he is doing to the characters. And now, because of this cleverness, because he starts with a question. Then, when the question is not answered and escaped, now he states it as a fact. And he told them that it appears in your looks, in your eyes, it appears in your, let's say, in your movements, in your speeches, in your language, in your everything, in your words and expressions. And now he tells them that you are not clever enough, not witty enough to hide this, to color this. So I have figured out you, I have discovered the real intention behind your visit. Okay, you are sent for. So hearing this now, Guildenstern gives up and admits the truth. And in return, yeah, he means that he admits the truth. He told Hamlet that they were, yes, sent for by Claudius to spy on him. In return, Hamlet tells them earnestly in calm, he in direct prose, what has happened since his mother's remarriage. So he will tell them cleverly the thing that really he wants Claudius to hear. So before he told Polonius, he made Polonius to think that he is mad because of the rejected love from the part of Ophelia. So Polonius will go directly to tell the king Claudius that Hamlet, he is mad, as I told you, because of the rejected love. And now he will tell Rosencrantz and Guildenstern that he is so sad and depressed because of the remarriage, not because of the death of his father, but because of the hasty and quick marriage of his mother. So again, those two reasons, if you remember in the previous lectures, we said that Gertrude, the mother, thinks that her son Hamlet is behaving madly, is behaving strangely, weirdly, oddly, because of two sources, because of two reasons. One, the rejected love of Ophelia. Now Hamlet convinces Polonius of this, and Polonius will go to the king to tell him and to the queen to tell them that this is the first source. Now, what about the second source? Hamlet will now convince and persuade, will tell Guildenstern and Rosencrantz that he is now behaving strangely because of the depression, because he was so depressed and sad because of the hasty marriage of his mother. So now those two again will go to tell the king and the queen that Hamlet is mad and acting strangely because he is depressed and because he is sad and because he is mournful of what? What is the cause and source of his depression? Is the hasty and quick marriage of his mother. So now Hamlet plays cleverly on those two, let's say three characters, but in these two meetings, okay, to tell the king and the queen what he himself wants them to believe, that he is acting strangely, not because of anything that is related to the killing or to the death or to the murder of his father. He mentioned no idea, no notion, not even an expression or word in regard or in terms of his father and the father's death or killing or murder. Now, with Polonius, he talks about Ophelia, and with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, he talks about his depression because of the hasty remarriage of his mother. Okay, so now Hamlet explains that he is no longer happy and that he has lost faith in his fellow man, man in a capital M. He lost faith in everybody except, of course, and even in himself except Horatio, as you will see that Horatio is the only person thus far, so far in the play, who has not disappointed him, I mean Hamlet. So Hamlet declares, finally, he declares pessimistically that man with a capital M, he means the humans, all the characters, all the persons that are here around him, he declares pessimistically that man has everything going for him. But somehow he manages to disappoint himself and everyone around him. And this is what's happening around Hamlet. Even now he is insulting even Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, telling them that I know that you are now not trustworthy, that you are now not good friends and not true friends. So I am disappointed by the hasty marriage. I'm disappointed with you. I'm disappointed by everybody, and even I'm pessimistically feeling and losing faith even in everybody and even in myself. Okay, so then his words, his final words here, refer back and they remind us, in fact, of his first soliloquy in Act 1, if you remember that soliloquy of of depression, of losing faith in everybody, of losing trust in everyone, and also in losing trust in himself, in which, if you remember, he said that we said that also he is now the epitome of the depressed person during the Elizabethan period of time. And now he is depressed. He is losing faith in everybody and trust even in his closest friends, except save only Horatio. And I let's say emphasize on this. Okay, so and of course he embodies all the characteristic features of a depressed person. He feels that he cannot change the world, and even he has no power even to change himself. By this we come to the end of the second part of our discussion and explication of the longest scene and the most important scene of this play, which is scene 2 of act 2. If you have any question, please place them on your Google Classroom. And also, I want you to make a link to answer this question. Let's say, according to you, uh, um, do you believe that Hamlet was successful in delivering his plan and the cleverness or not? And of course, if you say yes, give me the why. If you say no, also state why. So this is the end of our lecture for today. Stay safe, please, and see you in the coming lectures. Goodbye.